we're actually a team insert name here. And so it was me and Hugs and Imraan. And this was our project for the hackathon that was run at the end of last year. We all kind of aligned on a solution for securely managing and sharing transaction data. This is related to two things. Number one, a personal need for being able to review transactions, manage budgets, and we wanted to do something along the lines of Gmail, where you can manage your transactions with multiple labels rather than having to put them in a single category, and being able to review them and query them however you like. And the second thing was that there was a challenge that was made a few months back, quite a few months back now, about having an anonymous transaction pool. So we wanted to approach that and to be able to make transactions public in a way that's still safe and secure for those people who are sharing their transactions. The other side of that in particular was that it would be very interesting to be able to get an idea of what other people are spending. So we kind of spoke about demographics, but that's definitely a future feature. But just being able to see what other people are spending is an incredibly informative thing. You know, see what people are spending or earning, whatever, even without knowing who those people are and not having any way of getting access to their personal information. In terms of what we used, the actual platform itself, Budgie refers to the platform. And so this is a cloud-based platform. It's exclusive. It's entirely run in AWS serverless, meaning all Lambda and DynamoDB. There are no running costs unless people are using them, using the platform. And it was all built with CDK, and the interfaces, which are just examples that we untidily hacked together for the hackathon, in the tradition of the word hackathon, are made using Node.js and HTML and pretty much vanilla JavaScript. One point, please, if anybody has questions, don't hold them to the end. Feel free to interrupt at any time. So there was a suggestion to put a quote on here, so I found one that I liked, which was, "The ultimate security is your understanding of reality." And this relates to Budgie's ability, in theory, of being able to see what other people are spending and what other people are spending on, and how these things relate. But there's also play on the concept of security, which is very much a priority for a system that does this. So how it works. So the first part, which I will demonstrate, is anonymous user and account generation. So the idea is that, let me see if I can show you. I have no idea how to do this. No. Okay, I don't know how to do this without getting out of the presentation. And getting rid of that. Okay, so the first part with anonymous user and account generation is that when you generate a user, we have absolutely no idea what your email is, what your name is. We don't care. Basically, what we're doing is we're using your email address for two purposes. Number one, to confirm that you're a real entity, and number two, so that when we if you get an auth key and you get a user ID, and if you need to reset your auth key, you'll have to provide your email address. It's hashed into the reset key. So without those, we have absolutely no way of knowing whose addresses belong to who, whose user accounts belong to who, etc. And then once you've logged in, so the idea is here on this page, again, this is very, very hacky. Hugs's UI for the hackathon was way more pretty, but we felt that this was a better way forward. And again, this is just a sample. Everybody is welcome to build their own interfaces on top of this, and everything is open source. So everybody is welcome to spin up their own stacks if they don't trust us with their data. So the idea is that you put in your email address, you initiate registration, you get emailed a one-time password, you confirm the registration with a one-time password, and then you get back a user ID and an authentication key, and that's also and a reset key, and all of those are sent to your email as well for safekeeping. So back to the login, get rid of this. I use Bitwarden. I warmly recommend everybody using Bitwarden. So this is a demo account that I've created already. And if I log in, you can see I've already uploaded some things. If I log in, then I have a list of accounts. Now these accounts, I have absolutely no idea I don't know what these are until I've configured them and defined them, which I'll get to in a moment. And so from these accounts, I can now see all of my data, and these are this transaction data is related to the account ID, not to my, and the account ID is then related to the user. But these are things that even if I have access to DynamoDB directly, I cannot figure out whose belongs to what. I would have to do a lot of research and a lot of work. There's nothing open about this. Public transactions, if they have been rendered public, look like this. So, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me get back to the thing about sorry, one moment. Sorry, childhood interruption. So anyway, quick summary of this is that you generate new accounts very simply. It gives you a user ID and attaches it, and there you go. So this is, as you can see, this one would be it. Now, if I rename this here, this is just a guide to the UI. This is only being stored locally. So if I move to a different computer, this doesn't give me any information. So demo account, no purpose. And away we go. Now, having said that, so this is just an interface to the Budgie platform, which again is cloud-based. So what I've done is I've created a few accounts and I've given them purpose. Let me just go here. So, okay, I'll do that. So what we do, this is just my little guide, is on your local machine using our scripts. Again, anything can be used in order to feed the Budgie. I've added accounts. So this here is my account UUID that I've just created, well, theoretically just created. So that's this one. And this is the bank account number. I've obviously written a whole lot of dummy account data in my CSV files, a whole lot of dummy account data that that we can use. So this is going to be that account there. And in order to be able to use the feeder, great, now this is in the way. If anybody knows how I can hide this, I would be very grateful. So here what I do is I add the bank account. I've added the other ones already. And this gives me a file here which manages which bank. So that's to add an FNB bank account because I've recently moved back to FNB. But for Investec, there's an import a load Investec account script, which once you provide it with your API credentials, it will automatically download your accounts, and then you update that information, those account objects. You update those with your Budgie ID, and then it will take care of the rest. So we've got importing FNB, which is done via CSV files, which I've already implemented. And then you've got import Investec, which imports from directly from your Investec account. Now, again, that's importing to your local machine. And then those go into holding files. And these are the transactions. And you can then modify these before you upload to Budgie. So for Investec, it's actually a lot easier to manage because we hold everything up until the last time that it's been updated. I'm going into details now that are irrelevant. Don't worry about it. So we have an opportunity here before they're uploaded into Budgie, and then once they're uploaded, I literally type in node upload.js, and it does the magic and uploads them. We then have access to the accounts here. Now, as you can see, I've made 3 of these accounts public. Because I've made these 3 accounts public, they will show up with their account numbers. What's the word I'm looking for? Obfuscated. So these are just unique IDs that are per query. So I will never be able to figure out if I'm doing this, if I'm looking at old transactions or new transactions, I will never be able to figure out whose transactions belong to who. But I will get a sense of, when I do this, as far as getting a public transaction pool is concerned, I will get a sense of what an account did for a period of time. So obviously I can take this back from January, for example, and then I can take out a single account from what's downloaded and look at all of those details. Now this, as you can see, these are all masked. It's not generally very useful, but I do have the ability here to give it masking text. So this is swimming medley, or the don't ask about the the names of the things, but let's just call this swimming stuff, and I will update that, and that is the masked text. So the actual description is still masked, which I don't have to mask things. So let me take these 2, for example, and unmask them. There we go. Oh, excuse me, I forgot I actually have this interface here as well. So these are updating live. So these 2 will not be masked. This one is still masked, but it's masked with my own optional text. And if I go back to public transactions, here we can see swimming stuff. And I bet the other one was, okay. I wonder what, oh, I must have pressed those too many times. So let me just turn off the masked status and go back. There we go. Okay, so this is now unmasked, and you can mask and unmask as you like. So that's one aspect of this. The other aspect, which we find useful, is the labeling. So if I label this, and I can't see anything else that would be related, and I can give it a new label that says sports, right? This will contain everything that's been labeled that I've seen. And so I can now label by sports. Let me go back to what's unlabeled, and let's go here and label by health. Actually, let's do a groceries label. That I didn't put any groceries in here, whatever. Let me just label these 3 things with an arbitrary label, just for the sake of the example. And now this is where, for my purposes, the power comes in. So here I have a running total of all the transactions that are displayed. And this could be for 1 month, this could be for 5. And what I can do is I can select it by labels. So I can select here and say, why is this not letting me select? Because it's a live demo, is that it? Okay, so this was supposed to be letting me, so obviously I've introduced a bug, but the idea was that you could select both sports and the arbitrary label and do a union of the 2 or an intersection of the 2, and I'll fix that later, I guess. And so that gives you a really good way of breaking down your spend and figuring out where things are going and labeling them in multiple categories, etc. Right, so that kind of covers an overview of what there is and what it looks like. And I am going to stop sharing. No, that's not true. Excuse me. I'm going to continue with the presentation. So the next one was challenges encountered. So one of the challenges we encountered was learning a new UI framework. That was Hugs, working with Hugs. What was it called? Aurelia?
Aurelia, that's the one.
Right. So that was one of the challenges, and working with TypeScript was another. A big challenge for us was designing a serverless solution without storing any potentially sensitive information. So that took a lot of thought and fiddling around before we feel like we got that right. And then one of our team members, Imraan, went down due to illness. So we were a member short for the crunch time before the hackathon. So that was unfortunate. In terms of next steps, not listed here is fixing that labeling bug. We would like to improve the UI. We would like to add a nice dashboard and add filtering and grouping functions and comparison graphs. So in terms of the amount of time that we've invested in this, we really do want you guys or anybody to get involved in two ways. The first way to get involved is the easy way, which is to either upload transactions and start using this, or to let us know why you have concerns about using this so that we can improve those things. The best options to get in touch with us would be via Slack, on the offers in Slack, or to create issues. We are actually monitoring them. And now it's time for questions.
Thank you very much, Adam. Anyone have anything to add or ask? Adam, well, did you guys have fun at least sporting this? Was that clearly there was a lot of challenges and things that you were doing, but did you guys at least have fun sporting it?
Yeah, I think there was quite a bit of fun. I think the major difficulty was around, like Adam said, not knowing what was happening with the third member. So we spent a couple of days trying to figure out, like, do we do something? Don't we do something? Is this person around? And it was only after quite a while that we actually heard from him going, a man down. At which point it got really fun for Adam and I. We had to really double down, and some of the ways we had split the work was suddenly like, that's not going to work. Yeah. All right, let's go. So yeah, there was some fun time, lots of Slack messages, late nights, early mornings, as a hackathon should be, I think.
Yeah, I must say,
lots of learning.
I learned a lot in terms of how we structured this project. Everything that I've learned from about CDK and working with AWS has come through projects that I've done as part of this beta. So it was very exciting, and in terms of getting usage out of it, like, we decided on these things we wanted. The public transaction pool is an ask from the community, but it's not really very effective if nobody's using it. At the same time, for me personally, both with my Investic account and with my FNB accounts, like, I found it to be a very useful tool. Like, I needed this because there wasn't a tool available that I could trust. So I'm used to a tool with I lived in Canada for a while, and so I'm used to an Intuit tool, which kind of gives you all of these tools to manage your budgets and see where your spend is going and connect all of your accounts, etc. But it's very limited in what it offers, especially when it comes to breaking things down that don't have well-defined categories. If I talk about medicine, am I talking about going to a doctor? Am I talking about pharmaceuticals? Am I talking about grocery shopping? Am I talking about health shopping? Am I talking about actual groceries? Am I talking about going and grabbing an ice cream? Where's my fast food versus this versus entertainment? And trying to get a handle on a budget from all of these different angles to see which makes sense. And there aren't any platforms that allow you to do that in as I said, in like the Gmail way of looking up this label and that label, but not that label. And so just personally, I found an incredible amount of utility out of this. So this was fantastic. The only thing that I'm concerned about is that I think that there were a lot of concerns, especially I remember Rhiannon raising some concerns about the security of this. And it's not fun to work on a project like this alone, in the sense of if there are concerns, I'd like to hear them and talk about them and work through them. And it would be nice to get some reviews from the community, because just because I think it's secure doesn't mean I haven't missed something. I'm very confident in its security, but not 100% confident, and nobody can ever be. So the more eyes we get on this and the more usage we get out of this, I think we could turn this into a really powerful platform. There was also a South African company. There was a South African company that was plugging into other people's bank accounts, etc. But there was a trust issue in that they were holding my credentials to my bank, and I wanted a way to do this where there's none of that. I don't hold anybody's credentials. Even in this case, like, my credentials are all completely local, which I think could be a game changer in an environment like this.
Well, because there's a question in the chat from John, who's just asking around, anonymize the transactions, and he kind of foresees that because it opens up for fake transactions, and are there ways around it? Have you guys thought about that?
So one of the problems with, anybody could just dump noise. The reality is, there might be ways to prevent that from happening. I haven't figured any out. I don't have any off the top of my head. But this is a collaborative project. B, anybody can spin up a stack. All you need is AWS credentials, and you can spin up a stack in 5 minutes using the CDK project. So, we should consider ways of doing this. But I also think at the same time that there's like, what motivation could you have to upload transactions? Like, I can't see anybody getting real benefit out of doing that. So if we're using it and we suddenly notice that there's noise, then that's something that should be addressed. Absolutely.
But it's not something that you've thought about to build into a mechanism that can pick up the kind of fake transactions, because you can't tell, because it's anonymized. So that's
exactly. So this is absolutely a valid concern and a risk. In terms of how we resolve this, I'm not sure what the right way to go is, because we've kind of built in anonymity from the ground up. So if you upload fake transactions on a regular basis, I don't know who you are. Even if I find an account that's, I can't stop you from creating a new account. With the same email address, you could create 1 million accounts. There's no way for me to know who you are. At the same time,
so
sorry.
I think that would probably be like somebody who's using the platform for something. So like the base idea was that we would build a platform, and if that was something that was like super important for your use case, that you had to filter out or figure out if people were spamming you with fake transactions or whatever the case is, then that would probably be something that came from that side. Because like Adam said, there's no way for us to actually know that. And exactly what value are you gonna derive out of spamming and putting in fake data, other than Ben, who likes to mess with stuff?
Yeah, it's probably going to be a Ben. If there's a problem, it's probably Ben who broke it.
My actual bank transactions are spam. The things that I buy is just spam. But
you mean literally in a can?
Yes. Well, I was thinking a bit about that problem. First of all, I think I love this solution so much because of the potential of it. I think the really hard part about solutions like this is it creates infinite opportunities, and then you've like flooded with choice, and then it's like the universe starts flooding into your mind, and it's like a bit overwhelming. But there's one specific. I thought about something like this before we started the Investic project, when we were thinking about getting into it, which was, and I think in specific use cases, often for myself, because like I struggle with big picture stuff. So one use case was like, I wonder how other surfers in Cape Town spend their money, and how much I earn compared to them, and what they spend it on, and like food, like how much do they spend on food. and like thinking of it in like a surface segment, and then going like, okay, what are other people who work in tech, like how does my spending compare to that, and getting like a rating that kind of tells me you're actually like doing not too bad in your spending, or you're like overspending, or you have too much money, that, or you're like not saving enough compared to people in your segment, which I think is quite interesting. And then just looping back to this thing of like spam transactions. So I love the idea of just having like, this is all the transactions in one place, boom. And you can use AI or whatever to figure out like if there's malicious like fake transactions in there or something. You can maybe otherwise like use some kind of verified transaction thing where you do like a second factor of check, like with when you use your card and it gives a reference on your bank account, and then you give that reference back to PayPal. Like the ways to do it like that, or like a verification with, I mean, if this becomes a thing, you could do that like verified with the source or something if it's true. And then, so there's like a few ways around that if it becomes a problem or if it becomes something worth solving. But then there's another one which I thought of, which kind of ties into this, like surfers in Cape Town or something, is you could have transaction pools. Like I could create the surfers in Cape Town transaction pool, and if your solution creates like a nice little landing page then for that pool, and it guides someone into submitting their transactions, and then I can like share the password to that pool with specific people, so you only get like trusted access to the pool. And that's like an interesting way to do it. And I can share it like in a closed Facebook group or something. So I'm totally seeing a model here where you can kind of create transaction pools. But I do think, like, obviously, what I'm thinking now is we really need to figure out what is an interesting first use case of this, or like what is an interesting first experiment to get transactions in, to get it pulled together into like what question can we answer or something as a community. So, and then I think there's also interesting stuff like where businesses, like multiple businesses maybe want to share their transactions to do some kind of analytics. That's an interesting use case as well. Like maybe there's some reason businesses want to correlate their transactions or something. Yeah, so I don't know if anyone's got any thoughts on that, or if anyone found this interesting. Anyone else in the audience, maybe?
I think Davina just raised her hand. Davina?
Okay, cool.
Hi guys, it's Davina. I'm from Investec Bank. I actually look after programmable banking. This was really, really great. So well done to the team that was presenting. Definitely keen to chat to you guys afterwards. I think there's some interesting use cases here, and just as some context, not many years ago, feels like many years ago, but a while back, we actually saw like a tool also at one of the conferences in the UK called People Like Me. It was actually very similar to what Ben was talking about, that kind of gave you the ability for you to kind of compare yourself, like the surfer example, to other people like you. And you could basically put in whatever criteria you wanted to, you could say I'm a 20-year-old tech person, or female, or whatever level of demographic. My one question to you guys, and I don't know if I'm just tired today and I missed it in the presentation, so apologies, this dummy question, but with the masking and the kind of masking of data, how do you then do the analysis from a trend perspective? Because, like part of the thing that you guys demonstrated was when you upload your transactions, you can there's the obfuscation and masking. How would you then analyze it from that perspective? Because I'm thinking, say I'm a business or a bank, for instance, and we wanted to create a tool like People Like Me and just actually uploaded all of our clients' transactions on here. We would never do that, just for the record, but I'm just saying, if we wanted to do that in an anonymized way, you'd still need some level of ID and that sort of stuff, merchant category code. I was just chatting to Wayne while you were demonstrating, but how would you solve that?
So This is very interesting stuff. So firstly, just speaking about, demographics, etc., that was something which hasn't been implemented, but it was designed in from the get-go. So anybody could upload their demographic data, and we could then use that in order to query data. So that's already built in. In terms of the masking, the reason everything is automatically masked right now is because that's how I wrote the script, because we were treating security as a higher priority. That's up to me to determine. There's a flag of default masking or default not masking. The intention is that for everything that, that I could reasonably expose without giving away my personal information, that I would do so. But that is something that we would need probably some level of AI to kind of detect if it's a row that's just generic words, or if it might have an account ID in it. So for example, a row that with discovery information usually has some kind of account identifiers in it. So that's one aspect. The second aspect, and this is something that we didn't implement, but that we talked about a lot before while coming up with this project, is that this is now built in a way where it's not a big leap to build in automatic filtering, so that we could read the transaction rows and determine how to label these transaction rows automatically. In fact, we were specifically talking about having this being a community sourced thing, where you would identify your transactions and say, okay, this is a pharmacy, this is health, this is sport, this is entertainment, this is education, whatever. And then we would teach Budgie how to apply filters in a way that when anybody uploads, it would automatically be filtered correctly, so that you could use those filters then as part of your query. So you would query for certain demographics. I want people between 20 and 25 and living in Cape Town, preferably in these industries if they've indicated it as such. And then I want to know, what are they spending on groceries, or I want to know, what are they spending on something else. So that was one way of thinking that we had about this. In terms of merchant codes and category codes and that kind of thing, so this Budgie is built. It was initially built with Investec in mind, but it was already built with the intention of being able to collect data from any bank, and not necessarily just traditional banks. So we would like to be able to manage that in a way that it wouldn't matter whether you were downloading and uploading directly from your Investec account, or getting it from an FNB CSV like I'm doing, or whatever else. OCR on PDFs, but that we would have some way of automatically detecting categories and doing some kind of auto labeling that wouldn't impose itself on your personal labels, that would let you kind of do them together, but that would be enable doing the kind of queries that you guys are talking about.
I think it's also just to remember that it's mainly the descriptions that we're masking. So if a transaction is labeled and the labels are there, we can still do all the filtering and the querying. It's really the descriptions that we to Adam's point, whoever's doing the transaction will put whatever description they want. If they decide to stick your account number in there, we can't really do it. So security in mind, mask it first and then allow the person to change it. There's also obviously the opportunity for them to change it before uploading it. So if, like Adam says, you want everything unmasked by default, and you've got some fancy way of fixing your labels or fixing your descriptions so that they all don't have any sensitive data, then that's an option. But from a filtering, querying, grouping, slicing and dicing, we could do that with labels if that was put in. And again, merchants or codes or any other non-identifying information. The idea was to keep the identifying information as secure and as blocked as possible, and very explicitly saying it's a very explicit decision by the user to say, I want this information shown. And we could obviously put in warnings and stuff like that in fancy UIs, but it was an explicit decision by whoever was using the platform to say, I'm going to allow this to be seen. So yeah.
So two things to that. The first is, I don't know if you guys noticed how quick it is to mask and unmask. That was deliberate, so that you could literally go down the line, unmasking things that are irrelevant and adding new mask descriptions to anything that you don't want masked. The second thing is, I'm sure you guys noticed that we are not UI guys. That the UI that we have is not absolutely stunning and MVP ready. But the idea is that we have built a back end that can support all of these things. So whether it's how a solution to build to feed things into the Budgie, a solution to interact with Budgie, those are things that we absolutely welcome other people jumping in and saying, hey, I've got a better way of doing this. Go ahead. The idea was just to be able to present this information, to collect this information and present it in a way that we can actually have this conversation in the first place.